Hello, Night Nation. I'm Trey Strolico. Welcome to the Sons of UCF Live. Let's get this hour going with Adam and Leo. Guys, 49 days until the start of the 2023 UCF football season. A lot of big doings out of Dallas these last couple of days, Adam.
It feels like this is the longest summer ever, Trace. We've been really spoiled because we've had news every summer with coaching changes and transfers. This feels like the longest summer ever. I'm so glad it's now close enough where I can feel like I can touch football. Not quite there just yet, but I feel like it's really, really, really close.
Oh, it's close. Yeah, we're only 20 days away, just under 20 days, for fall training camp. So I can't wait.
I would be remiss, Adam, if I didn't comment on Leo's hat at this point. You've gotten into the spirit of Texas, I take it?
I'm absolutely in the spirit of Dallas right now. So Big 12 media was a big deal. So
I've got questions, Leo. A, did you already have that hat?
So it was propped up like on one of the desks here, and I was like, okay, I'll go ahead and grab it.
Good phrase, by the way, Adam. One of the desks. Let's count the credits.
A lot of good work's being done there in that office. Okay, so that's not your hat, correct?
No, it's not. It's not.
Okay.
So
will this be the last time you wear that hat?
It'll probably be the last time I wear this hat. Yes, for sure.
All right, it looks good on you.
One of those cool ones that you got on your head right now. So
it looks good on you, Leo. I need to make it. Maybe I should make a Sons of UCF 10-gallon situation.
Yeah, boy, you drop a photo on social media, Suns hats, and people come out of the woodwork for them.
Unbelievable.
You're sporting a new one right there, right?
This is one of the new designs. Yeah, it's not as prominent as I would like. It's probably hard to see on screen, but it's one of the new designs. I have a special design that's coming to a few of you out there. This is inspired by our good friend Dolly Drama. That's all I'm going to tell you. This is Dolly Drama inspired. Leo's going to get one. I got a few other ones heading out there, so keep an eye on your mailboxes, people.
Good that you mentioned Dolly Drama. I made a post on social media today saying, well, being in a real conference now is exhausting because so much is going on. Big media days. There's only so much time to consume all of the information. A lot has come out over the last 2 days from Arlington, Texas. We talked about, you said that football, the longest summer, until the start of the season. We had that moment going from June 30th to July 1, UCF officially in the Big 12. To me, this was another big moment. UCF on a stage. This wasn't, as Gus Malzahn poked fun of during his media session, in a Zoom box for media day. This was in Jerry's world. There was some gravitas to this, Adam. This was a big event.
Yeah, look, I mean, it was interesting to be a part of that big stage and, be in Jerry World and see the players and Gus and everybody out there. And it felt real, right? It finally felt real for the first time. I know we had celebrated on July 1st, but this is the first time we're really a part of that, that Big 12 family. And it felt different than Temple and ECU and Navy. I mean, it just felt a little bit more real for us. And Dolly's absolutely right. Like the amount of coverage that UCF's getting, and this is not a humble brag, but the amount of requests I've gotten or you've gotten, Trace, to be on podcasts to learn about UCF and to learn about the school in general has been really cool. So I love the way we've been sort of welcomed into the Big 12, and today made it feel more real, I think, than it had felt before.
More than 700 media members credentialed, the biggest names in the business, putting out stories and live shots, the coverage on ESPN. How about John Rice Plumlee, Leo, rocking the gold bow tie?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it was the coolest thing out there because I was very intrigued by Jalen Daniels and his little, I don't know if you guys saw his chain. That was pretty intriguing, but got to give a shout out to JRP just because it's classic and he's a very humble guy. So typical JRP there.
Can I just say, you only wear a bow tie, Trace, to show people you know how to tie a bow tie, right? Like that's the only reason you do that. It feels like a look at me situation. That's all I'm saying. I mean, yeah. You just do that so people know you know how to tie it.
He used the piano recitals excuse as a...
I need pictures. I need one other picture of JRP in a bow tie before I buy that piano recital situation.
And getting some favor of the new UCF beat writer for the Orlando Sentinel, Matt Murschel, who is always sporting the bow tie. So JRP, no doubt, sucking up a little bit there with Matt Murschel. Another big difference is Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark versus AAC Commissioner Mike Oresco. We have joked about him through the years. Brett Yormark knows how to command a stage. His opening comments, the Q&A, he is confident about expanding the footprint of the Big 12 with these 4 new markets, expansion of the brand in Mexico, and all of the other types of events. I think his vision a lot of people have bought into that, not only across the Big 12, the fan bases, but you could tell the media as well. Very intrigued about what he may do next, Evan.
Yeah, I mean, he talked pretty openly about a few different items about the agenda. I mean, he had on screen slides of what we've done, what we're gonna do, and sort of the future roadmap. And I thought that was interesting that you don't see that a lot in conferences. And he's certainly very forward thinking. You can tell he's somebody who I actually just really I know I made fun of this on Twitter, but I actually really like some of the subtle things he does. When every media member got up, hi, Bill from Kansas Plains, he would say, "Hey, Bill, how are you?" And Bill would respond, "I'm doing good, Brett. Thanks for asking." They'd ask a question and he'd answer and he'd say, "Thanks for your question." I like some of the subtleties that he kind of provides. You certainly can tell he has the gravitas for this kind of situation. He has that leadership for this kind of situation. I don't know what he said in between those, hello and thank you, but I think he certainly has sort of that presence that you're looking for in a commissioner. We have a clip that we can play in a little bit, Trace, about his talk about expansion, but I think he's also forward thinking, and I think that's something that we were sorely lacking under the Mike Oresco regime in the American Conference.
6 minutes into the show, 2 uses of the word gravitas, by the way. Leo, I know one of the things you liked about Commissioner Yormark is his interest in the footprint in Mexico, getting the Big 12 brand with future football games and basketball games being played in Mexico.
No, yeah, I think that is an aggressive vision for the conference. Just thinking about what other conferences are doing and what this could turn out to be, expanding into Mexico south of the border, it's huge. I think people need to start realizing that there is a fan base. Obviously, there is a big NFL fan base, south of the border, and that's gonna continue to expand if the Big 12, takes its media relations over there and we start taking our teams and stuff. And I keep thinking about if this is successful, how big the Big 12 can leave, conferences like the SEC, the Big 10 behind, just in the marketing wise, because obviously, the SEC is the SEC, but just from a marketing perspective, this could turn out to be huge.
I guess they handled things as well as they could with Oklahoma and Texas, a part of the 2-day Media Days event in Arlington. Of course, they're one more season in the Big 12. Commissioner Yormark, as you mentioned, Adam, asked about expansion. That is on the minds of everybody, waiting to see who moves where next, and he addressed it head on.
I said we were open for business last year. I think people took that as, my God, this guy's new and he wants to go and disrupt, I guess, in some respects. But indicative of my opening comments today, open for business was that we were going to explore every and all possibility to grow revenue, to diversify our conference, and to do things that hadn't been done before. And we did a lot of that. Relative to expansion, I said coming out of our spring business meetings at the Greenbrier that we have a plan, and we have a plan for expansion. And I'm not going to really address it today. You can ask me, but I'm not really going to address it. We do have a plan, and hopefully we can execute that plan sooner than later. But as I've always said, I love the composition of this conference right now. Mm-hmm. The excitement the 4 new members have brought to this conference has been incredible. And if we stay at 12, we're perfectly fine with that. If the opportunity presents itself where there's something that creates value and aligns well with our goals and objectives, starting with the board, then we're certainly going to pursue it.
I like the word he uses to describe himself as being a disruptor, and he's going to continue to be that. What did you make of his comments, Adam, on expansion?
Yeah, I think he was purposely vague, right? And rightfully so. But I like the fact that he's alluding to a plan of some sort, right? That they've sat down and kind of talked through that. He talked about value a bunch, which I think obviously indicates he's looking to add in teams that add value. But I think that's an interesting proposition, right? Because I think the basketball side, there's opportunity to add value in schools that's different than the football side. So how does he delineate those two? I think will be interesting. But I mean, you certainly understand that he seems like he's very calculated and he's got a plan, and a plan A and a plan B and a plan C. And I like the confidence that he indicates to the audience and to the members of the Big 12 around what he's working on. I think that's a vast difference from what we experienced in our last couple of decades in the American Conference.
Well, let's get the perspective of a member of the media, a UCF alum, a friend of the program, Eric Henry, now covering Texas at Horns 24/7. Eric, welcome into Sons of UCF Live.
What is going on, guys? It's always nice to hop on with you. It's been a while since the last I've been on, but it always feels like I get a brief chance to come back home. It feels like home whenever I'm with you guys. So appreciate you making the time.
Glad to have you back. Take us through this. What was your perspective? You've been covering FIU, and Coach Malzahn talked about having been in a Zoom box for the last couple of AAC media days.
Right.
This was a big event. Take us through it from your perspective, being on the ground in Arlington.
Yeah, well, while I was backstage in the waiting room, I caught the tail end of Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark's comments. And, I thought it was interesting hearing his comments, right? He's a guy who, of course, came from Rock Nation and came from the Brooklyn Nets. So not typically that kind of traditional run-of-the-mill pick of a conference commissioner. He does talk a big game as far as having big ideas and wanting to appeal to Gen Z. And time will tell how that plays out. I will say I did think it was interesting for all the talk he spoke of wanting to appeal to Gen Z and getting younger and hipper. They're at Big 12 Media Days in Arlington. The music that was being played was that of the Wu-Tang Clan and, Jay-Z. So not quite Gen Z, but I'm sure it's a work in progress, right? So I couldn't help but note that. But, really.
Not quite Terry Mahajer's playlist either.
I'm sure about that. No doubt about it. But yeah, just, kind of talking about his comments, I do think it really is going to come down to whether or not Colorado makes a decision or not, when the Pac-12, if they're going to be able to leave that conference and go to the Big 12. That will really kind of get the ball rolling as far as what else the conference is going to be able to do. And as far as the 2-day session, it was interesting, guys, because I thought the conference made a good move by moving Texas up a day and putting them on the first day, because it really would have created a kind of a unique kind of environment to have both Oklahoma and Texas, the schools that are leaving, on both days. I thought splitting those schools in two, right? So you could have the attention on half of the new members who were coming in yesterday's session. And then, of course, UCF really was the headliner today. So all in all, a really good event, but it did kind of have an interesting, unique kind of feel of any other conference media day that I've covered, because a lot of the questions were about the two programs that are leaving, what that's going to do to the future of the conference, but also the excitement of the new programs in specificity, UCF and Houston.
From a logistics standpoint, what's it like with 700 credentialed media members? What are those scrums like? You elbowing people to get your phone in there and record audio?
Trace, maybe this is something that, only guys like us can appreciate. Those scrums were horrible. So I kind of try and paint the picture. They had the big stage up there at the middle, and of course the coaches would speak, and they tried to take as many questions they could for about 10, 15 minutes. But right as all of the coaches, I'm not just talking about, your Steve Sarkisians and Brent Venables, so Gus Malzahn, I took a picture of his scrum. That was 25 deep. As soon as they stepped off the podium, they would take a second, compose themselves, take a picture with the mascot and the cheerleaders, and then walk right over to a Big 12 backdrop where you probably had about a dozen media members who had already waited in place for each head coach. So you talk about elbowing and shoving. I had to, make my way and use my frame to get in front to talk to Steve Sarkisian yesterday. No doubt about it.
Eric, you mentioned the four new schools. How much excitement was there for the four new schools? How much chatter was there amongst the media and some of the folks that were there?
UCF was a name brand. That's I'm not just saying that because I'm here, guys. UCF was the name brand. Even as Gus Malzahn was waiting to take the stage, I heard some of the writers behind me talk about, a really cool thing about UCF is they call their stadium the bounce house. Or you couldn't help but hear other media members, especially today, kind of having chatter about UCF. There was a lot of talk about Houston as well. Of course, I think a lot of that was locally based with, of course, the event being here in Arlington. And, BYU and Cincy as well, there was some talk. But overall, the headliner was UCF. And again, I think there was a smart decision to split up, not have Texas and OU on the same day as UCF, because in that case, a lot of the questions really would have been geared towards them leaving to the SEC as opposed to trying to put the focus on the future of the conference.
Eric, I kind of want to get you a holistic view of what the departure of Texas and OU means for the conference, and as well as what it means for the newcomers. Because Brett Yormark was asked yesterday how the two schools have carried recruiting, throughout for the Big 12. So I don't know if that really changes much in the aspects of rankings, the Big 12 as one of the top three, I guess, Power 5 schools.
There's no doubt about it. Brett, listen, it's his job as the conference commissioner to put on a good front and really be optimistic about his league, right? But one of the things he said is that, hey, Texas and OU have strong tradition, but he thinks that the league is more than two teams. That caught my attention when he said that, No disrespect to Brett Yormark, but listen, you're talking about two teams in Texas and Oklahoma who, regardless of on-field success, right? You know, we always have the joke, is Texas back? It's been a while since they've won a Big 12 title, of course, 2009. And of course, the last national title. Oklahoma's had a little more success in recent years, but the fact of the matter is they are still name brands. And that is going to affect the conference in a lot of ways with the trajectory that Steve Sarkisian has the program entering this year. And of course, if they do leave the Big 12 with the conference title, that of course would put them on an even higher trajectory, and the same thing with Oklahoma. So there's no doubt that those two teams leaving will affect recruiting. Now, just my personal opinion, this is where I think having a UCF comes in huge because, just some chatter amongst some of the media members there were saying, who do you think of these four teams really has the opportunity to kind of hit it big immediately? And I was making the case for UCF that, Houston, yes, they will have a shot to recruit really well. And Cincy being in the Big 12 will help them recruit. But I don't think Cincy's ever going to out-recruit the Big 10, name brand schools in that area. UCF has been recruiting well in Florida for a while. We've seen what Gus Malzahn has done to the transfer portal, and I think that will continue and even continue more now being a Big 12 team.
Make the case for Texas, the preseason pick here, and they're always mentioned. You mentioned the brand name, right? Do you see the makings of a team that can win the Big 12, or are they going to be once again overrated?
Trace, they are really, really talented. And I know you can say that about Texas in any previous year, right? But this isn't just someone who is kind of new to the beat and you kind of get overwhelmed by, the names here or there. You can run down the list, whether it's Xavier Worthy is one of the most dynamic players in all of college football. They have an All-American tight end in JT Sanders. You can go to Kelvin Banks Jr., who started every game as a true freshman left tackle last year. And I'll give you a stat that caught my attention. He played 4 games against first-round picks off the edge and didn't allow a sack as a true freshman to any of those guys. The defense, that's really going to be the thing that makes or breaks Texas's year this year. Excuse me. They're having to replace guys like Deshaun Jameson and others who've gone to the NFL, but they've got 5-star recruits like Anthony Hill Jr., one of the top edge players. You can't even forget about guys like Jalen Ford, the defensive player of the year, a preseason vote for defensive player of the year. So a lot of talent there. Of course, the running back position, a kid that out of Orlando, CJ Baxter out of Edgewater High School. He's looking, kind of that competition to the starting running back. So in my opinion, yes, the preseason hype is warranted. It's going to come down to Quinn Ewers and can he perform? What's
their Achilles heel?
Really, again, so 2 things. That running back room, when you replace Bijan Robinson and Roshan Johnson, 2 guys who went to the NFL, that's going to be huge. Again, will it be CJ Baxter? Will it be Jonathan Brooks? It's going to be running back by committee. That's going to be a big thing. In my mind, really the Achilles heel in terms of until he can stabilize his play is Quinn Ewers. We've talked about him. He's been a college football veteran, and I wrote this for Horns 24/7 yesterday. He kind of is the embodiment of today's college football player, right? A guy we've talked about him for years. Him coming out of high school, had the big NIL deal. But he's got to back it up on the field. When he was good last year. But when he was bad, it quite frankly hurt his team. And he put a little bit of that on, having a hernia injury and not being able to stabilize himself and really move the way he wanted to in the pocket. But he also says he's fully healthy this year. So it's going to come down to Quinn Ewers and can he make that next step in his development as a quarterback?
Eric, I know one thing, that Texas QB room leads the nation and total number of abs, but let's talk more about UCF for a second. Obviously, you're an alum, you're a journalist, you cover these kind of things. UCF picked 8th in the Big 12 preseason media poll. What are realistic expectations for UCF in year 1 in the Big 12?
It depends on who you ask, Adam. So, I work with a guy, Chip Brown, who's been covering Big 12 football in Texas for a better part of 3 decades. He's really high on UCF. He believes that if UCF can go 3-1 in each third of their games in the regular season, that they have a real shot at 9 wins. And, he's even more optimistic than I am. I voted them 7th in my preseason poll. I'm somewhere between 7 and 8 wins. If things strike right, I think 8. I feel a little more solid with that 7 number. But I just take a look at their schedule, and I do think there are some games that are going to be some challenges. And in my mind, 8th is it's somewhere between a little low and just about right. It's just that in my mind, there's so many games that are toss-ups. This league, you got Texas and Oklahoma who are far and away, in my mind, those top 2 competitors. And then everyone else is really kind of fighting for, okay, can we get a team going? Can we hit our stride and get hot? But with UCF, Adam, we all know what it comes down to, right? It's JRP. I don't think there's any question in my mind. I was very close to pulling the trigger for voting for JRP as far as Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year. I think if you can put together, listen, that's the truth. That's the truth. I didn't do it. At the end of the day,
you came to your senses.
At the end of the day, I voted for Jalen Daniels, but I do think if he can have the type of year where he throws for 3,000 yards and rushes for 1,000 yards, that's going to put UCF in really good position. But does everything else come together for the Knights? We'll see.
All right, follow up. So 7 wins as a media member.
Yes.
Is that acceptable? As an alum, is that acceptable?
As a media member, that's great. As an alum, I think 7 wins is acceptable. I think your first year in the conference, getting adjusted. Gus Malzahn made a really interesting point, and I don't know. My gut, Adam, tells me some of this is just coach speak. I think it's a little bit overrated, but he really emphasized it. He talked about the fact that there's way more travel for this team this year, being involved in a league that's a little more spread out, right? And he talked about, again, is this coach speak or is this legit? I don't know. But he said that the difference isn't in how far you're traveling to play the game, but it's the fact that when you're getting back, instead of getting back late Saturday night, you're getting back when, the sun is rising Sunday, and how that, plays a part in far as game plan for the next week. Little things like that, I guess they do make a difference, and we'll see how that plays out. But as an alum, I think that's about right as well.
So Eric, UCF hits the road against Kansas, Oklahoma, Kansas State, and Texas Tech. We all know, it's better competition now coming from the American. If UCF does show up and they look like a very good team, which of those games do you think that could give UCF the most trouble? Getting through them.
I mean, Oklahoma for one. Dylan Gabriel was certainly a popular man today, of course. Gus Malzahn was asked about the fact that he's playing against his former quarterback, and Gus talked about the fact of wishing he could have been healthy, and gave the corporate answer. I think we all can see between Dylan Gabriel and JRP what type of quarterback he's looking to use as far as employing his system. But yeah, I think Oklahoma is certainly the game that would give the most trouble. I mean, even you look at Kansas, for example. Kansas is a team that Lance Leipold has them heading in the right direction. Jalen Daniels is the real deal. Devin Neal, a former 1,000-yard rusher, running back. A lot of players returning. This is not the Kansas of old that won 2 games and was letting people in for free because of the fact that they were pushing Oklahoma to the fourth quarter a couple of years back. This is a real deal team. So definitely going to be some challenges, but of course the Oklahoma game is arguably the most challenging.
Right, and the reason I was asking is because Oklahoma last year they didn't look too sharp, and Kansas after Daniels was gone they didn't look, and obviously Kansas State was Big 12 championship though, so I thought they would present a bigger challenge, but just to kind of understand the Big 12 landscape a little bit more, because Oklahoma wasn't as strong I guess last year's, but I'm assuming from your analysis that they will be a team to that would be contending next year.
Yeah, just to quickly touch on that, I mean, I guess it kind of depends on your thoughts on Dylan Gabriel. I do truly believe that had he been healthy, Oklahoma would have been a little more competitive. And also Brent Venables has to get that defense up to par for a guy who has such a defensive pedigree. That's going to change. He's not going to have the defense that he had 2 years in a row. And as far as Kansas State, they got to replace Deuce Vaughn. They did get Treshaun Ward from Florida State, but Deuce Vaughn was a hell of a running back, and you don't just do that overnight.
There are no Temples or South Floridas in this league. Give me a surprise pairing in the Big 12 title game. Not a Texas, not an Oklahoma. Who could surprise and find themselves in that game?
UCF and Kansas.
Oh.
I'm not just saying.
That sounds so strange.
I'm not.
That sounds
I'm not just saying that because those are the 2 teams we just talked about. I mean, again. Jalen Daniels, guys. I mean, you take a look at where that team was. He had them off to a 3-0 start before he ended up getting banged up. They had to turn to Jason Bean, who is another dual threat dynamic quarterback, but wasn't the same type of precision passer that Jalen Daniels is. He is the real deal. Again, you pair him with Devin Neal. I genuinely think they're strong. And listen, I mean, like I said, this is not saying this because I'm an alum, just saying this because this was a lot of the conversation going on over the past 2 days. Some people really are high on UCF and think if they can hit their stride early and again, take 3 out of every 4 games as they go through the schedule in thirds, that they may have a shot to compete at the end. But Trace, to your point, that would also mean that Texas or Oklahoma has imploded and it would just be another year in the Big 12, I guess.
All right, Eric, a lot of us have been following your career for a while. Obviously, as an alum, you spent time, covering FIU, and you're a Florida guy at heart. What's the biggest difference between living in Florida and now living in Texas? What's your welcome to Texas moment so far?
Okay, so I tweeted about this, and I'm curious to see what you guys think. I mean, I'll give you a couple, but one, this heat, guys, is real. And listen, being born and raised in Florida, growing up in Tampa, living in Orlando, Miami, Florida heat is one thing, but I'm just telling you right now, the humidity, it doesn't make a difference. The humidity exists here, but when you get hit with this Texas heat and you feel like you're opening the oven at 425, that is real. So that's one thing. I'd say probably another thing is just people who live in Texas are very proud Texans, and they will not let you forget that they are very proud Texans. There's just a lot of Texas pride around this state that even living in Austin, it exists in very unique ways.
Despite the heat, Eric, I noticed you don't have a tank top on. What gives there?
Yeah. So, guys, here's the deal, right? I would have worn the tank top, right? If it's the Eric Henry choice, you wear the tank top. But guess what? CBS and Paramount tend to frown on the tank top when doing these things. And I was politely reminded that sleeves are not optional when doing media.
Were you politely reminded of this after you recently did a show with a tank top on? How did that come to be?
That is exactly how it worked. I was politely reminded that, hey, this is no longer your previous employer. I will not bash my previous employer, despite the fact that they named my previous employer that sleeves are not optional when doing media. So that is why.
Is there anyone else, though, in the company that could pull that off like you? I saw some of the media featured over the last 2 days.
No, not even close.
Sure, I saw a lot of guys that could pull off that look.
No, Trace. I mean, listen, I don't want to be cocky and all, but if you're looking for the non-sleeved look, that you can dig through Twitter or Instagram and find that. No, there's no one else.
Yeah, Shehan Raji could never. But Eric, how excited for you? How excited? This is a big move. How excited are for you to cover Texas and get out there and sort of be a part of a program like Texas? How exciting is this for you in your career?
Yeah, listen, on a personal level, guys, it's amazing. I mean, going from FIU, and no disrespect to the Panthers, but going from a program in an athletics, kind of standpoint where it's not the most of a fan base, right, to Texas, where lose, win, or draw, very passionate. And the Texas beat, I mean, Trace, you can appreciate this. It's an NFL beat. I mean, the amount of people who care about Texas football, the amount of people who cover Texas football day in, day out, it's very competitive. It's an NFL-like beat. So, Adam, for my career, it's huge, and I'm just grateful for the opportunity, and I appreciate 24/7 Sports and CBS for giving me the opportunity. But yeah, I mean, at least for one season, it brings me, a little bit closer to UCF as opposed to where, covering G5 and Conference USA football. I mean, I'm not in Las Cruces, New Mexico, or Murfreesboro, Tennessee. The budget stipend is a little bit more. I'm not flying Spirit or Frontier anymore. So in that sense,
that's a win right there. That's a win right there, Eric. Yeah.
Have you written anything yet that a diehard Longhorn fan has gotten on you about? Because I'm sure somebody's going to enter your DMs upset with you.
Not yet, but I'm learning from all of the previous writers, all the writers on this beat, and shout out to Taylor Estes, who I'm taking her spot. She's been very kind in warning me and saying, hey, in the preseason, it's all roses and, everything is great. The first time Texas loses a game that they're not supposed to, or the first time that it's 0-0 against Rice in the season opener and 0-0 entering halftime, things are just going to blow up. So she's told me that it is coming. So don't think that it's just going to be as optimistic as it's been in the early going.
Eric Henry, so good to have you on Sons of UCF Live. Looking forward to your coverage of the Longhorns this season. And who knows, no football games, but there will be other sports. We'll have to have you back on to talk something else.
Absolutely. I'll be covering football, basketball, and baseball. So I appreciate the invite, and, we'll see where the future holds. Appreciate it. Trace, Adam, Leo, thank you, guys.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Eric.
All right. See, Leo, see what happens. You work hard, make your way up there. Now you're covering Texas.
Get places.
Pretty big. Couple of football notes. Does this surprise you? Another transfer portal entry, right, as we're in the midst of media days. Quarterback Jaden Francois enters the portal. He must not see a big future with UCF.
Yeah, he's an interesting character. He was the kid who committed to Miami like twice, ended up in Nebraska, then transfers to UCF, and never really saw the field. I mean, a ton of potential coming out of high school, but never saw the field. I got to anticipate at this point in his tenure, he didn't see a path forward. But this is one of those weird things where grad transfers can leave whenever. I feel like we got to tighten that up a little bit. But obviously, hopefully he sees an opportunity to go elsewhere and get some playing time. And once a night, always a night.
Speaking of once a night, always a night, Gabe Davis. Leo, you had an opportunity to talk with him. Gabe, of course, with the Buffalo Bills now, back in town. He's behind a new venture.
Absolutely, yeah. So a couple media members showed up to the Draft Academy. It's right off of Goldenrod. I think the concept is great, and not just so for the professional athletes, but also for the college athletes that are going into the pros. Because we talked to the owner of the facility, that runs the facility, I should say, manager of the facility, Bert, and he was telling us, these are guys that are welcome here to act like pros, become pros. So they're taking care of their bodies like pros when they get to the next level. So it's a great concept Gabe Davis has brought to Orlando.
And of course, Gabe asked about UCF being in the Big 12.
Yeah, I'm so happy for the guys. It was a long time coming to be able to get the respect for them to now move on to one of the Power Fives. So it's going to be great to watch them this year.
Gabe Davis, always coming back to UCF. He's from Sanford. He's always in Central Florida. He was training out at UCF with a number of NFL guys. It's always good to have him back. He just embodies the success that UCF's had over these last few years.
Yeah, Trist, I love that aspect. I don't know how it works for the workouts, but I mean, he's got Bill's teammates there that didn't go to UCF, right? Other guys in the NFL who didn't go to UCF are here in Orlando training with him. And look, that can only help UCF at some point in time, right? Like having that many NFL guys walking around campus, using facilities. Before you know it, they're telling other people. I mean, I think that's really cool that some of these guys, even though they've left and they've moved on, there's a handful we could always talk about, but Gabe is one that certainly always wears the cape for UCF, and he puts his money where his mouth is and comes back and trains here, brings people with him. And then to Leo's point, opening something for the community that can help out and help younger athletes. That's really cool. And I know he's a UCF guy. He's a guy from that area. I think that probably means more to him to not only give back to his hometown school, but his actual hometown as well. I think that's really cool.
Of course, he paves the way for others, as did Jimmy Frizzell some 20 years ago. You and Mike recently had him on the pod, and of course, released as a standalone interview on the Sons YouTube channel.
Yeah, Jimmy was fantastic. I mean, for those who don't know about Jimmy Frizzell, I mean, his name's probably most famous to you because he held the kick for Javier Borleghi. So he's part of that famous call for Mark Daniels. Mike Hedge snapped it, Jimmy Frizzell held it, and Javier Borleghi kicked it. But this guy was a really tough, dynamic receiver for UCF and somebody that made a bunch of big plays. And we had a chance to talk to him. A lot of the alums, which I think is really cool, Trace. We've had a chance to talk to a few alums, and Leo talking to Gabe Davis. The alums and the varsity Knights are so excited about this move to the Big 12. And Jimmy kind of shares a little bit about the journey and has he experienced the opportunity for UCF to move up to a Power 5 conference.
But, going into the Big 12 now, I mean, it's taken some time, but it feels really, really good to be a part of kind of those building blocks and now to see where, we truly are in this Power 5 to where, oh yeah, we're going to go in the Big East. Oh, the Big East folds. And it kind of always being this shuffle of, hey, 1 year, 2 year, too late.
A lot of pride amongst UCF Nation for this move to the Big 12.
Yeah, that's the coolest thing is talking to some of these, varsity Knights and they laid the foundation for UCF to be where they are now. And Jimmy talks about it. There's always these rumors, right? People have been around long enough. We were in the MAC for a little bit. For people who don't know that, we were in Conference USA for a little bit, right? We thought we had the Big East, and that became the American Conference. So there's been such a journey, and it's so cool to see guys like Jimmy and Mike Palmer and Sean Beckton, who we've had on recently, who played a role in getting UCF to where they are. And I'm just as excited for those guys as I am for the current crop of Knights that get a chance to be in the Big 12.
Of course, this move to the Big 12 celebrated by guys and fans from the past as well the present. But you know what? The move to the Big 12 is always about the future as well. And covering recruiting in the state of Georgia for On3 Sports is Jeremy Johnson, national recruiting writer, and he joins us now. Jeremy, welcome into Sons of UCF Live.
How you guys doing?
Doing well. UCF has made a splash recently in recruiting. You're on the ground in Georgia. You cover it. What has surprised you most about UCF's push and using this Big 12 branding to make a difference with recruits?
how quickly it hit some of these guys, and how quickly the message that UCF is going into a conference looking to win a national championship. That's kind of been the theme between all the guys. That was the immediate, like, oh wow, these guys are not only thinking let's go win the Big 12, they're thinking, we're going here and we're gonna win Big 12, and then we're gonna go and compete on a national level. And I think that's something UCF has been knocking on the door of, like you guys were talking about, being in some of these other conferences. They really didn't necessarily get a fair shake some of those times, some of those good teams they had a couple of years ago. So I think this is the opportunity for them to be able to do that.
Jeremy, how have you seen the perception of UCF change over the last 2 or 3 seasons? How have kids thought about UCF now compared to, 2019 and 2020?
It's a fun program. I mean, it sounds like the guys really enjoy this coaching staff over there, and they really feel like, it's not, I mean, UCF has won a lot of football games, and I don't think some of these guys realize how much they've won, in the recent history. But every kid I talk to, and we want to go down there and build our own legacy. And I think that's kind of the change perception that I think has happened recently. Is just guys see it as an opportunity to go and compete, win a championship, go in and, prove some of these schools wrong, or, show that, they're going to go in there and help build a foundation somewhere rather than building on to something that was already built, like at an Alabama or Georgia or wherever. So.
Jeremy, talking about recruiting, and hometown recruiting has always been an emphasis for Coach Malzahn. But now, going above and beyond Florida, Georgia, which is a very competitive state, I'm assuming, having Georgia there, Georgia Tech, how big of a recruiting move is that by UCF to kind of like set a base in Georgia where they can start recruiting guys that are talented and, maybe fight schools like Georgia and Georgia Tech, to get these recruits?
Yeah, I think it's vital for a program in the state of Florida. Obviously, they got Florida to build out of, but also you coming up into Georgia where, I mean, the guys they're playing 7A, 6A football. Like that's really high level football on every Friday night. And these guys have played a lot of high school football as well. So, I think it's important to get those kind of guys, because those guys are guys that'll make an impact early. Those are guys that you can count on to, set your foundation moving forward, because they've seen so much already. They've been exposed to so much. I think that's a good way to start for Coach Malzahn and that group, because, I mean, you look at Clemson, Georgia, when they were first getting going under Kirby, a lot of the base of those foundations of those football teams came recruiting that Gwinnett County, that Atlanta area and South Georgia. So, if UCF is able to do anything even similar to getting in and getting some of these guys and, building a brand within the city of Atlanta, they will be competitive, because there's going to be so many good football players that, are just coming out of the state. Like it's literally just guys are falling out of trees to come play college football in the city of Atlanta. So, I mean, I don't know why more programs don't try to do it, to be honest. So.
UCF's moved to the Big 12 official on July 1, and each of those days, from the first on, that boom after boom after boom. Tell us about some of these guys that have been announced as commits.
Yeah, obviously Colin Fox was the big one, the big tight end. He's a big time potential guy, big time playmaker guy that he's still building and developing. And then, his upside is, pretty substantial. And I think, if Gus Malzahn is able to put him in some good spots and use him and get some mismatches, he's going to be a guy that we see blossom over the next couple of years, just because he's about 6'5", 6'6". He's still learning. He's still kind of learning the tight end position. I know he played some edge early in his high school career. So he's one that's got a lot of upside. Guy that's really come on strong. He came on strong last year at Sandy Creek, and when he's moved to Langston Hughes this year is Jacob Good. He's one of those guys on defense. You're gonna hear him. He's gonna talk. He's a little ball of energy. So I think he's gonna be one that really connects with the fan base. And Walt Claire Flynn, Colin Fox's high school teammate, he's one of the nastiest offensive linemen you're gonna see. He's not really tall, but I mean he makes a living out of pancaking guys and doing his little step over. So he's gonna bring he's a nasty interior guy that will set the foundation of that offensive line. I mean, everybody I can talk about is, I can say they're foundational type players. Stacey Gage, right out of the state of Florida, big time recruit for a long time. He's played a lot of big football games against a lot of really high level competition. Another big time playmaker to add to that offense. So, Quay Birdsong is a guy I've seen quite a bit. He's, he may turn into an edge, but he plays stand up linebacker and covers, right now. So he's another guy that just has crazy upside that, in 2 or 3 years, we could be talking about him as a potential NFL type of guy. Just physically.
And all the guys you mentioned have been active on social media recruiting for UCF. They're encouraging guys, hey, look where I plan to go. You need to join me.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of camaraderie between the guys that are already committed, and I think there are some guys that they know they're going to get that they are, really connected with. I think that's something that's an underrated aspect to have, especially when you recruit a lot of guys that know each other. Because hey man, look at what we're doing over here. You come over here with us. You see it with classes every now and then where there's a group that just they just click. And I think that's what's going on with UCF right now. Not only because they're recruiting guys from the city of Atlanta and the state of Georgia or the state of Florida. I think these guys genuinely have been on campus together and they've connected and they all kind of have that same mold. And, when you get into a room with people that kind of have the kind of same mindset of you as you, special things can happen, especially on a football field.
Well, Jeremy, based on your comment, in your opinion, is there more to come? Are there more recruits that you think are heavily leaning towards UCF?
Oh yeah, I definitely think there's more to come. I'm not 100% sure who will be next, but the guys have mentioned guys that they want, and Bredell Richardson is a guy that comes to mind. Tavion Galloway, former LSU commit, is another tight end that I know the guys really want. I don't have a date or anything in front of me, but those are guys that I'm looking at that are targets that some of these guys have mentioned when I talk to them. So that both of those guys would be huge additions, and both of those guys are really good football players. So I think that would be where I would start when I start looking.
Well, Jeremy, I know you cover recruiting on a consistent basis, right? As fans, as media, there's a lot of conversation about NIL. How much are you seeing NIL as a factor as you hear about kids and visits they're taking and schools they're committing to? How realistic or how real is the NIL pull for kids as they think about schools these days?
It's definitely a factor. I mean, I don't think guys they don't really talk about it out front and in the public, but it's definitely something you have to consider. Obviously it's there. I mean, it's like people, it's there. I mean, that's really the thing. It's like people are dealing with it kind of behind the scenes, but I don't know if it's making decisions for a lot of guys. I think maybe at first it brought some teams into the room that might have not been there, but I think at the end of the day, a lot of these guys are making football decisions when we kind of really look at it. I mean, so I think it's there, but also, I mean, it's not the whole picture. It's probably about everybody has their own pie chart, and I'll say that.
Jeremy, I was kind of wondering a little bit about Christian Peterson as DB. He's a 3-star. I haven't really heard a lot about him just because, all these other 4-star recruits, you kind of underlook those, but he looks like an interesting recruit. Can you give us a little bit more of what he gives us?
Yeah, I like Christian. Christian's, he's played a lot of football. He's one of those guys that's a veteran at a big school. He's played, nickel. He's played in the safety, and he's one of those guys. I know another one of those guys that is a ball of energy on the football field. So, I think he can be really versatile. He can play corner. He can play nickel. I think that's kind of his role, is down in the box, kind of playing that star position. I think he could have an impact early just because he's seen so much football. Him and Jacob Good are kind of similar. I think Jacob may be a little quicker, a little more twitchy, but he's just a really good football player. I mean, he's not going to go out and run a 4.4 and be a 4.3 guy and jump 40 inches, but he's going to be in the right spots where he needs to be. He's very, he's a solid guy that you can count on a baseline being here, and it's going to be there for 48 minutes or however long, 60 minutes, however long a football game is. He's going to be that way. So I think that's what you're getting in him, and I think he's going to be one of those culture setter type guys.
Let's wrap up with this Back to NIL. What's the wildest amount of money you've heard of?
I haven't really, honestly, I hadn't really heard a number. I've just kind of read what, other people read, the numbers they were throwing out last year. I don't even remember who it was. It was like a couple $1 million. I can't remember who it was, but that's kind of that's the biggest I've heard, to be honest. So
they're not throwing that out to recruiting writers, though, are they?
No.
Jeremy Johnson, national recruiting writer on 3 Sports. We appreciate you joining us. Hope to read more of your articles as UCF lands more booms in the state of Georgia.
Absolutely. I appreciate you guys for having me, and I'm sure there are more coming. It's going to be a pretty good class for UCF, and I think this is going to be one, that fan base kind of connects with, just because those guys sound like they really want to be there.
Jeremy, thank you. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Y'all have a good one.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you. When you talk to a recruiting guy, you like to hear the words twitchy and nasty. He threw those words out.
Yeah, I mean, listen, UCF has done a fantastic job. This recruiting class is already, historic for UCF if everybody sticks. I like Gus getting into the state of Georgia, keeping the state of Florida whole. If we can keep that strategy up, I think Jeremy's hit it on the head. This could be a really historic class for UCF. And I love the part he says about these guys working together and being together as a unit, right? And I think that's so important. And that's kind of what it takes sometimes, right, guys? It takes like one special class to come in and really change the culture and really change some things. And all of a sudden things start taking off, and you need multiple classes to stack on top of each other. But before you get that, you need that first one. So maybe this is that first one for UCF. That'd be really cool.
Of course, it's July. Early signing day is December. Let's see what happens between now.
There's that too. Yes.
There's that. Let's go around the kingdom. Hey, Leo, some big baseball news this week. Congrats to former UCF catcher Ben McCabe, selected by the Colorado Rockies in the 9th round of this week's MLB draft. Couple of free agent signees as well. Rudy Gomez, the pitcher, he inks with San Diego, and pitcher Zach Austin signs with Atlanta. Volleyball, Abby Hansen, who led the Knights in blocks, named to the All Big 12 preseason team. Knights selected ninth, no longer first. New world post McKenna Melville. So no lofty preseason expectations for volleyball. Softball welcomes a Cal transfer, right-hand pitcher designated player Sonia Halligan to the Knights as Cindy Ball Malone continues to build her roster. Speaking of that around the kingdom, Adam, you were part of this. Debuted a new show, welcoming in the voice of UCF softball, Eric Lopez, for a little discussion program. Nice 30-minute conversation on all things UCF.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It was obviously you and Eric Lopez and just kind of really back and forth debate style. And it's available now on our YouTube channel. You can get it on the podcast feed as well. And if you've missed any of it, here's a little snippet to get you interested.
So if UCF gets improvements at the quarterback position from John Rice Plumlee, among other areas, it wouldn't totally shock me if UCF was near the top. But at the same time, I think this is fair. If you're the Big 12, you're not going to vote a new kid in the block ranked so high. I think you're going to go with the establishment. Interestingly, Texas is the preseason pick, Oklahoma near the top. But I don't think it's crazy for football to contend right away.
I thought Eric was crazy, saying UCF might find its way back.
He just said he didn't think it was crazy, Trace. You can't say that.
I thought he was, but then Eric
he said he's not.
Us off the top of the show and says, he could possibly see.
He says that's not crazy, though. He said that.
That's crazy.
It's not crazy.
It's crazy.
Perila.
Around the kingdom, we will plan to record and drop midweek again on the Sons YouTube channel and as well in the audio pod feed. Thanks to Eric and Adam. You're part of the show as well. Timekeeper extraordinaire, counting us down, throwing out the booms to cut us off from.
I just hit the buttons. I hit the buttons and come out with the fun facts. That's all I'm there for.
Good job. Good job. All right. Mailbag time.
My favorite time, Trace.
It's back by popular demand. It's that time again. Time to open the Brian W. Peterson Sons of UCF mailbag.
Every time.
Do you think this is on his LinkedIn profile that he includes this starring role in our show every week?
I wouldn't put it past him, honestly.
Is there a gold version? You said there were a couple designs on these hats. I know
there is no gold. No, there is no gold.
Are you anti-gold? Where are you on gold? Are you anti-gold?
I'm moderate gold. I don't like the O'Leary version of gold. The new gold we're rocking seems to be okay. Listen, spoiler alert, I'm a fair-skinned individual. Gold is not my power color, so it's not really for me per se. But if you like gold, feel free. I will say Brian's taking this gold thing just a little bit
A little too far. Just
a little too far. Just
Leo, gold, yay or nay?
It's a for me. No, I'm not a big goal guy either. I can by what Adam was saying, feel the exact same way.
like I want to go to Brian Peterson's house. Like if his toilet isn't gold, if I don't have like gold like knobs on the cabinets, I'm gonna be really disappointed in Brian Peterson, because the fact and the way that he loves gold, I feel like I'm gonna walk into a mausoleum when I walk into Brian Peterson's house.
We got a video question from our good friend, Robert.
Hey boys, 2 letters, 2 words here with a question. I just learned that at the College World Series, there's a Jello shot championship amongst the fan bases. The question is, if we end up at the College World Series, is Trace our coach or our top competitor? Go Knights, charge on.
There'd be a level of professionalism about over-consuming Jello shots, I'm sure.
I was just distracted by Sugar Ray playing in the background. I'm not sure where Robert was at, but song in the background was really distracting me. I feel like Trace would be a coach in this situation. I feel like at some point it's time to pass your knowledge on to others on the proper way to get the Jello shot out of that little plastic thing fast enough, discarding the plastic thing and getting on to the next one. It's kind of like Joey Chestnut in the hot dog eating contest. Like you've got 2 at a time. How do you rotate the right way? I feel like Trace has a lot of expertise in the area.
I feel as if though Leo would have avoided being cow of the week on the most recent Suns podcast.
I knew we were going to go
for some solid advice.
That's not fair.
I didn't name him.
Fair.
You guys would be surprised, but I think I'd be a top competitor. Just saying. You guys, hey, gonna put it out.
I don't doubt you, because I worry about the next day, Leo, but I feel like that day you'd be solid, my friend.
Exactly. The next day, that's where we got the question marks, but
fair enough.
Dolly Drama, we mentioned him earlier, asking, I gather, at me, most memorable moment, experience, interview from media days past. It is especially poignant to me to know that I had a very solid conversation a few years back with Hope Anderson. And of course, you don't realize that that's going to be maybe one of the last times you get to speak with someone. So I appreciate that moment. And he asks the second question: if you could cameo a different beat for half the season, which Big 12 conference member would you choose? Leo, we ship you off to somewhere. Where are you going? Who do you want to cover?
I'll do Texas. I mean, I know they're going to be gone after this.
It's about the party scene, isn't it, in Austin?
It definitely is about Austin, and just because it's been a powerhouse, so I gotta say Texas, no doubt.
Adam?
Texas Tech, because what's going on there, really? Like, what are we
doing?
You're
not going to Lubbock, are you?
What are we doing? I need to what are we doing? You voluntarily chose to go to school here. I need more information.
I think for this upcoming season, I choose Oklahoma just to be reunited with Dylan Gabriel and get to throw some questions his way.
Wow.
Always difficult for me to say. Must say it slowly. At Don't Fuck Up.
Was that
3? We shall not repeat it. With Big 12 Media Days in full swing and we being able to see our conference mates and our guys represent the program, what is the most memorable vacation that you've taken that doesn't involve anything UCF? He also asked, what's the square root of 361? And I'm not good at math.
It's 19, Trace, for those asking. I think Leo and I were just on really cool vacations. I was in Costa Rica. Loved my time in Costa Rica. I don't know if Leo feels the same, but Costa Rica, nothing UCF related other than the UCF shirt I had on for the most of the time. Really cool vacation.
I mean, I've been to some pretty cool countries, but I don't think anything tops Italy just because of the tourism things that you could do there. It's just some great things. But Africa is very underrated is all I'm going to say. I know it's a continent, but it's got some really cool countries that I recommend you guys visit from time to time. So
put me down for Europe until I get to go to Lubbock later this year. At Manny Amores, he's asking, with 7 weekends away from the start of the season, if you could include, what would be your playlist? If you watch a game each weekend leading up to it, he's supplied choices here, asking us to rank them. Maybe a little complicated, Manny, but Adam, we'll begin with you. What's your go-to here? What are you starting off with?
Ooh, if I can only pick, so I'm certainly going 2017 Cows UCF. I mean that's first. Then I'll go 2017 championship game. Then I'll go Auburn. That's 3 right there. Give me College Game Day for 4. Gasparilla for 5. Give me that Baylor game in 14. Louisville in 13. That gets me to 6. And just for giggles, I don't know if that 18 Memphis UCF game is the championship game. If it is, I'll take that one too.
How many of these have you watched since they were played?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, probably 5.
Wow.
Leo, what about you? Pick one or two there.
I'm gonna go ahead. This is actually had a big impact on me when I was growing up watching football. 2013 UCF Louisville. I think that season for UCF kind of just put UCF on the map. So that has to be number one for myself. And I didn't watch this one live, so I rewatched it, and it was definitely UCF 2017, and that was electric.
What were you doing, Leo? You didn't watch it live?
Yeah, I was
buying a hat. What were you doing?
He was probably enrolled at another college.
No, actually, I was in the Army at the time, and I was.
All right, fair enough.
I kind of.
Now I'm a jerk. Sorry about that.
The fact that I went back and actually watched it, it was electric. Like, I was like, wow, I can't believe I missed that. To be there live. So.
I feel bad. I'm with you, Devin.
Black Friday. That's where it begins and ends. At Spursy night, how many noon kickoffs do you think we get in the Big 12 schedule? At least a couple, especially some of those road games. I think. And by the way, interesting, Brett Yormark talking about possibility of Thursday, Friday night games, and he talked about the heat early on in the season, which I thought was interesting. I don't think there's a lot of fans in Night Nation who want any noon games, especially during September. At Strength and Spirit, will Trace pledge to unfollow or not retweet one more cow? I will not make that pledge. Anything that I find amusing or interesting, I repost. So I am going to relish in their lack of success.
Communicate.
Another Strength and Spirit question: rank the Big 12 mascots. We're not going to rank 14 of them. I will begin with saying that my favorite, and I did a little research on this today, is the Mountaineer, West Virginia mascot, elected from the student body since the 1930s. Okay. They can have a couple years, two-year term limits. Surprising to me that there have been both male and female selected for this. I would have just thought guys, and the guys, of course, they pretty much want them to grow the beard. I think with all of the masked characters that were in Arlington at Big 12 Media Days, it's interesting to see the Mountaineer wandering around.
I did like a minute of research before this trace. Whatever that thing is in the back left with the red and the big giant hat, I don't know what that mascot is.
Yeah,
that's my winner. I don't know what that is. That's my winner. Whatever this thing is right here with the giant red. It looks like some sort of Sesame Street character. It looks like he's got Leo's hat on. I don't know. That's my
He looks like he's got Leo's.
I'll give you a top three right off the bat, right quick. I'm gonna do the Jayhawk, the Horned Frog, and the Red Raider, the Texas Tech.
The Horned Frog.
Those three right there. I think
who's in the back. What's in the back right behind Nitro? What is that?
That's a cougar.
Which one?
Is it
He's between cougars.
Hey now.
Oh no, that's a Bearcat next to him there on the left, right?
That's the Bearcat is Cincinnati, and then the cougar on the right.
What's to the left of that then? What's that bird-looking thing?
Oh, that is a cardinal. Is it a cardinal? Iowa State? Cyclone?
It is some sort of cardinal, though. It's a Raider Red, by the way. Adam, Raider Red, Texas Tech's costume mascot. Before the 71 football season, Southwest Conference passed a rule which restricted the bringing of live animal mascots out-of-town games. Thus, the Masked Rider. Texas.
I'm being told it's a cyclone. I don't know. Matt Dolan knows a lot of things about the Midwest.
Pretty sure it's a cardinal.
Yeah, it's definitely a cardinal, but I don't know why it's a cardinal.
But there's something about the Cardinals.
There it is right there.
Yeah, we're going to.
Wow. Look at this. Well, I dislike Iowa State already. I know Ohio State, by the way.
At Chris Bilowich, Chris asking, UCF enjoying a lot of recruiting success lately since they'll be competing in the Big 12, but how many of the current commitments will jump ship if UCF has a mediocre first year in the new conference? I don't think that matters as much as what bags of money get tossed around between now and December.
Yeah, if you're asking me to predict, I mean, we should have maybe asked Jeremy this, but I don't know what percentage of recruiting classes are flipping after 1 year, but whatever that percentage is, I don't think UCF's immune to that. So if it's 20%, 30%, I think you're seeing that all over the place. So whatever that number is, I don't think UCF's immune to that, win or loss.
Leo, at UCF Knights win, there's a lot of experience on this year's team. Do we have a better shot at making some noise this year or next?
I'd say the following year. I feel like the transfer portal is going to make a big impact just because JRP leaving kind of opens up that QB room. So the big question mark after JRP leaves. So I think a splash in the transfer portal for a QB can really get the excitement going for next year. And I think next year we're in a better spot just because of the recruiting classes coming in and, having, I guess, Power 5 talent coming in. But, it's going to take some time regardless. I just think next year is a little bit more hype.
At UCF, I think this is a great question. ESPN's projections say UCF loses at Kansas State, Texas Tech, Oklahoma. Of those three, which game UCF most likely to steal a win? I think that Texas Tech game is so difficult in Lubbock, and I think that Kansas State one is hard. I could see, though, them beating Dylan Gabriel in Oklahoma, that him making a mistake and the defense seizing upon it. Though a tough environment, I'm going to say Oklahoma.
Damn it. You took my answer, Trace. I was going there as well. I'm hoping for a late pick 6 Boise State game style for Dylan Gabriel, and UCF wins the game.
Yeah, for me, that Oklahoma, I thought, what Eric was saying about Oklahoma, I think it's giving me a little bit of hope that they probably do it maybe at Texas Tech. I think Texas Tech might be that team. That's
at underscore all night underscore. Do you believe the Big 12 with its depth, top to bottom, is more appealing conference to play in as opposed to the ACC? And not geographically, maybe, but I do think it's wide open, and maybe not the case in the ACC.
Yeah, I think there's more competition in the Big 12. Maybe I'm biased to that, but I mean, I feel like the teams in the Big 12. I think you and Elo said it in Around the Kingdom, a clip we showed earlier. There's a stack of teams in that middle portion that any one of those teams can pull a TCU and come out on top of the Big 12. Wake Forest winning the ACC?
No.
Is Virginia winning the ACC? Is
No.
Georgia Tech winning the? I don't think so. So I think the Big 12 has a little bit more competitiveness than the ACC does.
Leo at Greg 730. Do any of the true freshmen become opening day starters on this 23 Knights team? That's a good question.
Opening day
starter.
Yeah, opening day. That's tough because if there were to be one, I'm looking at the tight end position in Pittman.
Ooh.
I think he's yeah. I don't know. This is not to offend Alec Holler, but he was a walk on, and.
Not to offend you, but let me offend you.
No, I mean, no. This is what it is. Like, Pittman's a highly touted recruit. He looks like the real deal. I mean, I've seen him. I've seen his high school tapes as well. I think he can, maybe not. I wouldn't say day one, but he could definitely be a starter as the season goes on in tight end position.
Adam, didn't we see Randy Pittman at Burger U?
We did. Really nice kid.
Leo, you saw. Oh, that's.
Oh no, Leo. Yeah. He was otherwise gay. Really nice kid. Very energetic. I think the answer is John Walker. I mean, between Ricky Barber, Lee Hunter, and that middle portion, maybe he doesn't get that first start. But we rotate those positions. Yeah. I think John Walker is probably our best chance at that.
At Coach Pierce, how do we get UCF license plates in Georgia? A little bit of a movement this week about that. I would continue to badger the Alumni Association. I know people have looped in Terry Mahajer. Badger the Alumni Association to generate some interest in that. At UCF Guy 23 with a late question, yes?
Move to Florida, get a plate, and then go back to Georgia.
Do you have a UCF plate?
I don't. Yeah, I don't.
Still using your previous state's plate or not? You switched over, but you didn't get one?
Something like that.
Very interesting. At UCF Guy 23, your mark indicating maybe a redesign of the Big 12 logo. Do you want Roman numerals or complete change? What would you choose? I think we should be using Roman numerals for anything. And I never write it as a Roman numeral, so I just write big with 1, 2.
Yeah, I don't want the Roman numerals. The Super Bowl always, trips me up every year, and I'm trying to figure out what game number we're on. Give me real numbers on that. I'm curious what he does, though, Trace. I mean, he seems to be kind of out there in terms of ideas. I'm curious what that rebrand looks like. But
just
give me the old-fashioned number 1, the old-fashioned number 2.
Leo?
Yeah, I'm with Adam. Old-fashioned number 1 and 2, Big 12, and hopefully it looks modern. It's not, they don't try to get cute with it.
Backed up. _ all night _ when lacing up. This is a frequent discussion question on the Sons of UCF pod.
Yeah.
Are you sock shoe, or do you prefer sock shoe? I have a terrible answer on this that I always think of because I know Mike rants on this. I don't necessarily do it the same way. I mix it up.
So if you're not sock, shoe, Go turn yourself into the police right now. Sock, shoe is the way to go. And I'll take it one further, Trace. I always go left to right. So left sock, left shoe, right shoe. Every single time it's sock, shoe. Who's walking around with one, like a sock and a shoe on the right foot, and the doorbell rings and you're like, oh crap. And you've got one. No, sock, shoe. If not, go turn yourself into the authorities.
Well, I don't know that I'm going to do that. I'm just saying, I acknowledge.
Maybe you should, Trace.
I don't necessarily.
I'm going to call Crime Stoppers after this and report a heinous activity on your part.
Leo, are you with
Thank you,
the
Manny.
kind of Adam on this one?
100%. I've always done socks, shoe, but I wouldn't take it to the extreme as going right to left with the shoes. Like it's whatever shoe I see near, so I'm just gonna do right, left. Doesn't matter. But yes, sock, shoe for sure.
There's some responses there, and then we'll end with this one at Nightpin94. Does Trace ever have any wild, irrational fan outbursts while watching UCF game, or only sane and steady objectiveness? While in the press box, I tend to be steady and objective. A fan in the stands, a little more insane. It's difficult for me to be in the press box. I have snapped pens before on bad plays. I mutter.
You madman, you!
I scream in my head. Well, you can't lose your mind.
You could.
Yeah. No, you can't lose your mind.
Well, if you go sock, shoe, you should lose your mind.
Who's kicking you out, Trace?
Well, I'm sure there's a long list over there. Athletics. I'm not back in there yet, Leo.
Fair point.
Yeah, they like you. Yeah.
Hide your back, rats.
Thank you, everybody, for your questions. And finally, FanFest coming soon, Sunday, August 6th in the arena. Adam, you were there for that with family last year, 1:30 to 3:30. That was a good time. I mean, there's a lot going on, running all over the place.
Yeah, really cool opportunity to meet the players, get some autographs, stand in line, get some pictures. I mean, the guys are always welcoming and will take pictures and shake hands and, and have a little conversation with you. So if you're available, it's a Sunday. It's a good time. I recommend everybody bring the kids. The players are so good with kids. My 10-year-old was there. Everybody took pictures with him and signed. I think that poster right over my shoulder there is the poster my son got signed last year. So all the players are super, super welcoming. So if you're thinking about it, bring the kids, bring the family, make it a day. It'll make you proud to be a UCF Knight.
Yeah, it's a good time. Good time. I want to thank Eric Henry for joining us and his perspective on Media Day, and Jeremy Johnson talking about recruiting in the state of Georgia. I want to thank both of them. Be sure to check out Jimmy Frizzell, that interview on the Sons YouTube channel. And if you haven't caught Eric Lopez and I on Around the Kingdom, our new show as part of Sons of UCF, please be sure to check that out. We will catch you next week. For Adam and Leo, I'm Trace Strelko. Go Knights!
Charge on, including this guy.
I'm Blake Bortles. Thanks for watching the Sons of UCF.
Back on campus.